Hello, and thank you for watching this video about getting a green card for immediate family of U.S. citizens. My name is Jacob Tingen, and I'm the managing partner of Tingen Law. We're located here in Richmond, Virginia, and we help immigrants from all 50 states and all over the world. This video is the introduction to a deep dive that we have on our website. There's a link in the description so you can go visit us there. It's the most comprehensive guide, I believe, on the internet about how to get a green card in the U.S., so the adjustment of status process for people who are immediate family members of U.S. citizens. We'll talk about what all of that means after the break. All right, so as I mentioned, this is the guide for getting a green card if you are the immediate family of a U.S. citizen, or if you're the U.S. citizen getting a green card for your immigrant family members, right? And there are a lot of ways to get a green card. You can get it through employment, you can get it through some kind of humanitarian means like asylum or a U visa, those kinds of things. This guide and this video is focusing solely on getting a green card through your family relationships. And even then, we're focusing even closer because all of these things are very nuanced and niche. We're focusing only on immediate family of U.S. citizens. So if you're interested in this video series and in this guide that's on our website, watch the next 5 minutes or so and we'll give you a good idea if this is the guide for you or not. Even if you're not an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, there's a good chance that we can help you out. So feel free to give us a call and we can give you a consult on your specific case. All right. So what is an immediate relative? This is a term that's defined in our nation's immigration laws, and an immediate relative means the spouse, parent, or child of a U.S. citizen. To count a U.S. citizen child to petition for their parent, that child has to be a 21-year-old U.S. citizen child. And then for you to petition for a child, and you're the U.S. citizen, then that child has to be unmarried and under the age of 21. So that's a couple of things to keep in mind. Additionally, you need to know that step-parent and step-children relationships do count. And so I know that some of you are probably thinking, why would you be a U.S. citizen and your child would not be? Well, sometimes that comes down to a step-parent, step-child relationship. As a general rule, you just need to know that for the step-child and step-parent relationships to count, that relationship has to have existed before the child's 18th birthday. If it did, then you might have that qualifying relationship. You might qualify as an immediate relative. Now, the other kind of legal term that I threw out there is adjustment of status. And so you can get a green card while you're present in the U.S., and that's called adjustment of status. The idea is that you're present here in the U.S. in some kind of legal status that's not a green card holder or a permanent resident. And so you are adjusting your status from whatever it is you hold to permanent resident status. There are ways to get a green card from outside of the United States, and we generally refer to that as the consular process. But this guide focuses primarily on the adjustment of status process. We'll talk about some of those consular quirks that might come up throughout this video and others related to this blog post. Again, check it out in the description. But to get a green card while you're in the U.S., the Immigration and Nationality Act says you have to meet a couple of requirements to be eligible to adjust status. So the first is you have to have a lawful entry. You have to apply. That's go figure, right? You have to be admissible, and admissible is a legal, we call them term of art. So it has specific legal meaning, and we'll get into that too. And then finally, you have to have an immigrant visa. And I know a lot of people probably don't care about the nuance and the difference between a non-immigrant versus an immigrant visa, but you will care if this is something you're looking at doing. All right, so we're going to go through and ask a couple of questions. Again, this is designed to help you understand, one, are you eligible to adjust status in the United States? And two, is this the right guide for you? Because so many of these things in immigration can be very particular. You might hear something in one place that doesn't necessarily apply to your situation. So that's one of the reasons it might be important for you to talk to a lawyer as well. So let's get back to this. What is a lawful entry? So first of all, the Immigration and Nationality Act has this language. You have to be inspected and admitted or paroled. And so you have a lawful entry generally if you enter with a visa. There are scenarios where you can enter without a visa, but that you might be paroled into the United States. So we see this frequently in our practice where people will come across the U.S. border and they'll come across at a port of entry and say, look, I don't have any papers, but please let me in. I can't go back because I might be harmed. And so, yeah, we give people what's called humanitarian parole. And so those people are still inspected and paroled into the U.S. Whereas if you come in with a visa, you're inspected at the airport or at the border and then admitted into the U.S. And so, again, some of that language may not matter to you, but when it gets down to the brass tacks of the legalese, a lot of lawyers know that this stuff matters a lot. Because of parole as an option, there is something called parole in place. It's used in a very limited way, and primarily, realistically, you're only going to get parole in place if you are the immediate relative of a member of the U.S. military. And we'll get into that later. We'll have a whole video on just that, and there are additional details about that process, parole in place for family of military, on our blog post, so check that out in the description. And then finally, there are some special circumstances where you might get a lawful entry through some other kind of immigration mechanism or visa. So again, what's important is that you have a lawful entry so that you can adjust status. So that's one of the first requirements. What's an immigrant visa? Because this is an important question, because the Act says an immigrant visa must be immediately available. And so an immigrant visa is not a non-immigrant visa, which again, I know this is legalese, but a non-immigrant visa is a temporary or non-permanent visa. So think of visitors visas, student visas. The idea behind those is that they're supposed to be for a limited time only. Whereas an immigrant visa means when I come into the US, I'm going to come to stay forever. I'm coming as an immigrant permanently. And so that's the difference between a non-immigrant visa and an immigrant visa. Like I mentioned, for a non-immigrant visa, you can qualify for a large host of things: temporary work, study, visits, that kind of thing. When you come in for an immigrant visa, to come permanently, you have to have a basis for that, usually a family relationship, and that is the focus of this guide. So frequently when we talk about those family relationships, there are family preference categories. And basically anyone, so permanent residents and U.S. citizens, they can petition for their spouses and children and significant others, right? Legal significant others. Again, you have to be married. So there are family preference categories, and we limit the number of visas that are issued each year. And so there's a significant backlog for some family relationships. One big example is U.S. citizen siblings. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you petition for your brother or sister who lives in Europe or Mexico, Mexico is particularly bad because the wait time for a U.S. citizen sibling petition is about 20 years. And that's because there's a limited number of visas that are issued each year. When you're an immediate relative, there's a significant advantage that applies to you, which is there's always a visa available to you. And this is because for immediate relatives, there's no limit on the number of visas that are issued each year. If you're the spouse of a U.S. citizen, if you're the child of a U.S. citizen who's unmarried and under 21, or if you're the parent of a U.S. citizen who recently turned 21 or is over 21, you might qualify as an immediate relative. You do. And so that means you don't have to have any kind of visa wait time. There's no backlog. An immigrant visa is immediately available to you. And so that's what the Immigration and Nationality Act is trying to say. To adjust status, you have to have a visa already. And so that's what matters there. Now let's talk about that word admissible. I said we'd get into this, and we'll have a whole video on how to overcome those kinds of issues. But admissible has to do with this idea that you have to be eligible, right? And so you're inadmissible or ineligible if you qualify into a list of 10 things that we keep. It's an Immigration and Nationality Act 212. There are 10 reasons. Among those are like unlawful entry to the United States, unlawful presence in the United States, criminal history. I mean, it runs the gamut. If you're a spy or a terrorist or a Nazi. So there are a lot of reasons that you could be inadmissible, some of them more outlandish than others. But we do have that list of reasons. Now, finally, some of the more common issues that we see in our office have to do with criminal history, working without authorization, or unlawful presence. and sometimes unlawful entry, right? And so those are some of the more common run-of-the-mill reasons that somebody might be inadmissible. And again, this goes back to that immediate relative advantage, is that some grounds of inadmissibility are automatically waived. So if you're an immediate relative, it doesn't matter if you worked without authorization in the US, that's automatically waived. It doesn't matter if you have unlawful presence, so long as you have a lawful entry. So if you're a visa overstay, so long as you had a lawful entry to the US, there are some exceptions, which is again why you might want to talk to an attorney. So long as you have that lawful entry to the US, that's automatically waived. And then other minor violations of non-immigrant visas. This list comes from the USCIS policy manual. USCIS are the people who are going to be making a decision on your adjustment of status green card application, and so it's good to know what they're saying about the issue. Finally, if you're an immediate relative, then you can also apply for a waiver even if you have a criminal history, even if you've accrued unlawful presence in the US and don't have a lawful entry. And there are some other reasons, some other grounds of inadmissibility that might be able to be waived. And so you get significant advantages from being an immediate relative to a US citizen in your green card process, especially if you want to get a green card here in the US. Now, you might have been listening to this and thought, okay, maybe I'm not eligible because I don't have a lawful entry. Well, talk to a lawyer. Because of your immediate relative status, even if you don't have a lawful entry, there might be things we can do to either help you with your process, speed it up, or maybe even waive that too, especially if you're family of military. So that's more to come in later videos. To summarize though, the biggest takeaway is if you're an immediate relative and you have a lawful entry, we can probably adjust status. You can probably get a green card in the US without having to leave the country. And even then, if you can't adjust, you can probably still get a green card through some other process. And that's what makes what we're doing here with this video so important, and why we're focusing on immediate relatives of US citizens. You have this opportunity to get a green card that is potentially easier and more streamlined than you may have realized, and we'd like to help you with that. So there you have it. If you are an immediate relative of a US citizen, you want to keep watching this video series and you want to keep reading the blog post that you're currently on our webpage. If you found us on YouTube, click that description in our video. We hope that this video has been informative to you, that it's been helpful to you. Please like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you around our YouTube channel and on our website. Thank you.